Hi, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful, restful break or worked a lot over the break, whichever you prefer. But I hope you, even if you worked, you had a little bit of time to spend with friends and family and maybe get some sleep after fall quarter. Well, I think we all need a little sleep. So it's winter quarter, so it must be neuro. We're here for PTA 204 Clinical Neurology. I will be your instructor for this course. It's a 100% online course, and your other course this quarter will be your lab course. So I love this course. It's my favorite. It was my favorite when I was in school, and it's been my favorite ever since I've been teaching it since 2012. So it's packed with great information. This is the course where you find the answers to your questions, or not all of your questions necessarily, but you find a lot of reasons why things work the way they do, um, how things happen, why they happen. The control systems in our body are initiated by the nervous system. And of course, the endocrine system and other systems are involved. It's all involved. But the nervous system is a major player. And so knowing what goes on in the nervous system gives you a lot of clues as to what goes on in other systems. We're going to be using the textbook Neuroscience Fundamentals for Rehabilitation, the 6th edition. If you happen to have the 5th edition, it will also work. The updates in the 6th edition, the pain chapter's been expanded a little bit more because there's more information out there now with pain neuroscience. The 5th edition, I think, came out in 2018. Actually asked the publisher, what's the deal? Like, why do you why do you come out with a new edition every couple of years and make just itty bitty changes? And they had a good answer. One of the reasons is they make small changes because it is too hard to adjust curriculums all the time for big changes. Also, they make small changes because every couple of years they want to make small changes so they keep the information up to date with current research, and they keep the edition in front of the buyers of textbooks. So I thought that was an interesting answer. And the textbooks that we use in this program are textbooks that are used in DPT and PTA programs throughout the country. So we are consistent with the curriculum that is required and prescribed by CAPT, which is our accrediting body. So we use the same neuroscience book that they use in a DPT program. We don't have dumbed down information. I hate that expression, but the information that we have is the same that you would have in a DPT program. However, that having been said, you will find that the book is very in-depth. It's more in-depth than we actually need for this course. So this book is really intended for a 400 level course, and this is a 200 level course. But the course that we're taking this quarter is really intended to prepare you for your neuro rehab class next quarter. So this quarter, we're going to learn about the structure and function and dysfunction of the nervous system. And next quarter, you're going to learn about what to do with that dysfunction in rehabilitation. So this course is paving the way for you to have a successful quarter next quarter in your neuro rehab class, which is a lot of what we do in PT. A lot of people, a lot of past students or PTAs that you work with might tell you that neuro is the hardest course in the program, and you might be approaching it with some anxiety. However, I would like you to instead approach it as like this is a 3-credit course. It's all online. It's all paced out for me. There are learning objectives that I can follow, and I don't need to get lost in the woods in the textbook. So it is a difficult subject because it's very conceptual. You can't get your hands on it. And I know that a lot of us in PT are hands-on people. So having a concept that we can't get our hands on can be very frustrating. But I think if you follow through with me and use the learning objectives to help you narrow down the information and don't get lost in the woods in the book, you will find it interesting and educational and hopefully fun. So I love neuro, and it's so interesting this course, it's an introduction to clinical neurology, the effects of neurological dysfunction on the rehabilitation process. So it includes some basic neuroanatomy. However, this is not a neuroanatomy class, so you're not going to have to know all the details of the neuroanatomy, even though there is a lot of detail in the book. We're going to cover basic neurophysiology and the fundamentals of disease processes and neurological impairment, which is where the rubber hits the road in neurorehab. So it will be similar to your past courses with me, the non-lab courses. The course isn't self-paced. It does follow a regular schedule. We will all go through it together. So the course is divided into 4 modules. We'll have 1 exam per module, and the weeks are organized Monday through Friday. Sounds familiar, right? I always have regular homework type assignments, just your week-to-week assignments, due on Saturdays, just like we've done in previous classes with me. I'll open the new module the previous Saturday morning, so you'll have access to the information. And the tests will be online, just as we've done in the past. As you know from the polling that I did towards the end of last quarter, we are going to change the online testing just a little bit, have it a little more condensed, so it's not throughout the day. We're going to have most people responded to the survey that they liked the 9 to 12 time. So most people are going to be testing in a window in that range. I will have one late time in the 4 to 6 range for people that need a later time. Not one slot, but one testing session. So I will send out an announcement with the signups and everything for time. So your time may change a little bit from last quarter. There will be more people testing at once. So in previous quarters, we've had just a few people testing at a time. And now a lot of people testing at once. So the check-in process is going to be a little bit different. And I will detail that out for you, what that is going to be. Of course, if you have something weird, like you're going to be out of town or whatever, we can always arrange to do testing at a one-off weird time with the testing center or with me. So we can always work out those weird little things that happen. So don't let that stress you out. I'm always like trying to avoid stress for you and for me. Just like in previous quarters and previous classes, all my lectures are posted on my YouTube channel. When the new edition of the book comes out, I update my lectures, do new lectures. You could go watch them all right now if you want. However, I suggest that you don't do that. You don't want to overwhelm yourself with information. If you take it in small chunks, it's easier to digest. And that is one of the reasons for the pacing of this class, because there's a lot of information we're going to go through. And I want you to work along with me so you don't get overwhelmed with that information. That having been said, even though there's a lot of information in each week, you don't only have 1 week to learn the information in the week before you get tested on it. You'll have a couple weeks to absorb and manipulate and sit with the information before the test. So know that. Hopefully that is the idea is to help you feel good and relieve some of your pre-neuro jitters. I want this class to be an enjoyable experience for you to learn neuro. So the 4 tests in this quarter are scheduled throughout the quarter. There's one big writing assignment, which is due a couple weeks before the end of the quarter. The last week of the quarter is usually stressful, so I try to make our project due earlier so you're not taking it into the last week of the quarter with you with all that stress. So they're just like you're used to in my classes, there are practice quizzes every week. You can take the practice quizzes multiple times. And the practice quizzes are meant to help you get used to the testing format, the question format, and the type of material you'll be expected to learn. However, it's not possible for the practice quizzes to be exactly the questions that are going to be on the test, but it gives you an idea of the type of material that's on the test. So the practice quizzes, I think you're all on board with those from previous quarters. Having been said that there's a lot of material in this course, it is a great idea to read the weekly agenda of assignments, read the learning objectives and the discussion questions, before you start reading the book, because it's easy to get lost in the woods when you're in the book. There's tons of extra information in there. So when you look at the preparatory material first, the learning objectives, it gives you a sense of what you need to read carefully in the book, what you can kind of skim or skip over in the book, and we will skip entire sections of the book. I will just tell you that. We'll do a little bit in each chapter, but we will skip a lot in each chapter as well. It would be a huge mistake this quarter to try to read this book cover to cover, because there's a ton of information in there, and you're never going to digest that all in a quarter. I've been in other neuroscience classes in this program teaching them and taking them in other programs, and you never read the whole book. So just don't do that. You might note something in the book like, wow, that's really interesting. We're not really doing that this quarter, but I'm going to mark it just so I can go back to it later and get some in-depth information, but don't stress yourself out by reading too much information that you don't need to know for this course. So we all come in here with a similar body of knowledge from what we've learned in the program so far, but you might have different experience with neurology or neuroscience. So the learning objectives are meant to guide you in smart utilization of the text. So think of them as your guideposts. We're not trying to build a new brain. We're just trying to build a good foundation for neuro rehab next quarter. And as usual, your active participation in all class activities is important to your success and the success of your classmates. We do have discussion boards and other assignments where you can gain from the collective knowledge of the class. Actively participating helps your classmates as well. And as many of you already know, a study group can be a huge asset in this program. So if you don't currently have a study group, now's the time to think about that. How about getting together with some of your classmates, either online or old school by phone? Do people even use the phone anymore? I don't know. Or text or Discord or whatever it is, whatever communication. We have all sorts of options. So however you want to do it for a study group. If you want to go seriously old school, you could even do it in person if somebody that lives nearby you. I know that's crazy, right? But it is helpful to study with other people. One of the students that graduated last year said she was in a study group with a couple of other students, and one of the other students in her study group really likes to explain things, and she really likes to have things explained to her, so they were a good match for a study group. And she got one of the highest scores on the board exam that I think I've ever seen. So sometimes having someone explain something to you is the ticket. Another option for assistance is you can sign up for tutoring. And this quarter, it is a really good idea to sign up for tutoring at the beginning of the quarter. Don't wait till you're freaking out on the material. Sign up at the beginning and get a head start on it. Almost invariably, in every class I teach, somebody emails me toward the end of the quarter. And they say, gosh, I'm a couple percentage points away from an A- or whatever grade they're shooting for. Is there anything I can do to make up those points? Well, I'll tell you what you can do is you can make up those points in the first couple of exams. So the first exam is going to be the easiest, right? Because it's the basic material, hopefully, in theory. So if you kill it on the first exam and do really, really well, then you're living in the buffer zone. I know I've talked about the buffer zone before, but you have more leeway. You have more of a cushion and you're not trying to make up points. If you dig yourself a hole in the first exam or two, then you have to fill that hole and it's hard to get to the next level because the material builds just like every other class in this program. The material builds on itself. So if you really study hard at the beginning of the quarter before you're all stressed out and you do really well on the first couple exams, then you've got a buffer zone, you've got a cushion. And that is a wonderful place to be because then you can really relax and learn the information without feeling stressed out about your scores or other things. So that's just my advice. Study groups, tutoring, buffer zone, it's all good stuff, right? So that's my advice. Take it as you will. I try to design class activities to give you more ways to think about and interact with the information. So When you do the discussion boards and that sort of thing, I don't want you to read the text and then tell me what it said in the text. I know what it said in the text. I just read the new edition. Well, earlier in the year, but I just read it. I want to hear what you think, not what the author of the text thinks. So a lot of the discussion boards and homework assignments in this class, I give you a basis of information, and then I want to know, what do you think about this? How do you think this might affect someone? What might you see in the clinic? So I want to know what's going on in your head, not what's going on in the text, okay? We will have office hours throughout the quarter, just like we always do. They're going to be structured like they have been in previous quarters. This quarter, they're going to be on Wednesdays between 7 and 8. I try not to have my officers on the same day every quarter, but because I know people have obligations and they can't always come to the same day. Of course, there's always a recording if you can't make it, or if you have a specific question that you want me to address in office hours, but you can't make it. You can email me ahead of time and say, hey, could you address this particular question in office hours? And I'll try to do it towards the beginning of the recording, so you don't necessarily have to listen to the whole thing. So you're probably used to the format. We're going to go over the learning objectives. There'll be opportunities to get your questions answered, and hopefully a little nice discussion. You can always post questions to the Ask Loretta discussion board. A lot of times in this class particularly, because it's neuro, people will find a resource, a video that they like, or something that it explains it really well, and they'll post it to the Ask Loretta board, say, hey, other students, you might be interested in this. So when you post to the Ask Loretta discussion board, or think about emailing me a question, read through the other posts and see if somebody else has posted information that might be helpful to you, and check with your classmates. So really, the people in your class are such a great resource. Don't forget about that. It's easy to be a loner as an online student, and I don't want you to be that. I want you to feel the power of the cohort. So there's a link in the welcome part of the course to my YouTube channel. All the videos are listed there in order. I will post all the recordings for the office hours in there. However, I always post them unlisted because we don't want everybody to see that stuff. So I'll always post a link to it in an announcement. And I always delete the office hours recordings at the end of the quarter. Actually, that's a really fun part of the end of the quarter for me, deleting all those. So they're not kept forever and they're not available for public view. So don't ever worry about that. You're not going to find the organization of this course to be any different from the organization of my other courses. So you're already used to it. So it's like we can hit the ground running. We figured all that stuff out. We can just go right in there. So let's take a look at the modules, just a little preview. Okay, this looks very familiar, right? It looks exactly like every other course, right? So module 0 has the introductory material. There is a link to the syllabus. It'd be nice to read. I have an assignment schedule at the very end of the syllabus. Of course, some of the information you've seen before. It's all the information that the college has us put in there. But there's also new information that's relevant to this course. I tend to put it at the very beginning of the syllabus, the first couple pages. At the end, there's a week-by-week assignment schedule, and it tells you what chapters we're reading, what major assessments we have, so when the tests are, and what assignments we have due that week. So hopefully that's helpful to you. The Ask Loretta board. The winter quarter project, this quarter, we are our evidence-based project, like we have an evidence-based project every quarter. This quarter, I'm going to ask you to find a person with a neurological disorder and interview that person. And then I want you to do a little bit of research on rehabilitation for that particular disorder. A lot of people, when they read the description for this, they say, oh my gosh, I don't know anybody who has a neurological disorder. And I wouldn't be surprised. I would be surprised if you didn't know someone. I've never had anybody in this, I've been teaching this course for 12 years now, and I've never had anybody have any difficulty, even during COVID, finding someone to interview for this disorder, for this project. So the neurological disorder can be anything. In the project description, I have a listing of things you might consider. It just might be like, I know someone whose child has CP. Usually when your subject is a child, you're going to be interviewing the parents, depending on the age of the child. I know someone who has sciatica. I know someone who had carpal tunnel surgery. I know someone who has MS. I know someone who has Parkinson's. If you really have difficulty finding someone, shoot me a message and I'll brainstorm with you on ideas for how to find someone to use this project for. So the other thing to think about is when you're choosing your subject for your project is the availability of research. So the example I want to give you is, at some point when I was in school, probably taking a pathology class or a neuropathology class, I wanted to do a project on ALS because I had an aunt who died of ALS. Well, this was a long time ago, but there's a little more research, but there's still not a ton. It was at the time, for me, it was before the ALS gene was discovered. And the gene was discovered in 2012, so this was pre-2012. And there wasn't a lot of research out there about ALS. So I remember not being able to find anything because there really wasn't anything. So what I did, instead of, beating my head against the wall or crying, maybe I did that, I don't know, but it's been so long, I don't remember. But what I did is I changed my project to MS. So there's tons of research on MS, and there's lots of stuff out there. And there's even more now. At the time, they had just come out with some of the disease-modifying drugs, and now there's just a lot more. So sometimes you might want to choose a project, not necessarily based on the person you interview, but a neurological disorder that is similar to the person you interview. So say you interviewed someone who had a disorder, and you couldn't find any research on that disorder, you could find something similar and use the research for that. So hopefully that makes sense. And of course, if you have any questions, then let me know and we can sort through it. I'm not going to make you choose your subject ahead of time, or everybody have a different subject like we've done in some other quarters, because I might do my project on MS and you might do your project on MS, and another person might do theirs, but every one of them is going to be different. We're going to interview different people and we're going to find different research. So you don't have to check in with me on your project. You can, if you say, I don't know if this is going to work, and you want to check it out with me, certainly. Or you have someone that's got an unusual disorder, like Friedreich's ataxia. They did just come out with a treatment for Friedreich's ataxia, so that's interesting. But yeah, there's not a lot of research. Maybe you pick something, someone that has something, there's not a lot of research. There might be something else that you can use for the research part of your paper. So if you need a little help with that, you can certainly contact me on that. One of the really good places to look for, or one of the many good places to look for different research, is the associations like the Multiple Sclerosis Society or Parkinson's.org. They often have a research clearinghouse section on their website. The Michael J. Fox Foundation, the Davis Phinney Foundation, those are both Parkinson's. They have tons of links to good research on those websites. So that is a great place to look for information. I want you to check in with me if you have questions, but if you don't have questions, just go nuts. But even though it's not due till the second week in March, I suggest that you get started on it before you're too stressed out at the end of the quarter. Find your person and interview them. That's a good start. Then you have a month or so to get to find some research and find what's out there. So don't try to do this project at the last minute. that's your warning. Don't try to do it at the last minute. And if you're just one of those people, you could turn it in early. I'm one of those people, but I know not everybody is. So every quarter can be stressful, right? And this quarter can be stressful for a lot of different reasons, maybe just because it's winter and it's dark outside. So don't wait till the end of the quarter when your stress systems are overloaded, because it's not going to be as much fun. I hope that you'll enjoy and learn a lot from this project. And if you try to do it in a stressed way, it's not going to be fun. The other thing about the end of the quarter is we are dealing with more complex information in the lecture part of the class. There's more to learn and there's more diversity of information. So it's better to start at the beginning of the quarter when the information's a little bit more basic, and you can pace yourself through the quarter and you're not scrambling to get stuff done. Scrambling is never a good learning situation, as I'm sure you all know. So we're going to start out in Module 1 talking about the basic organization of the nervous system, and then we're going to start at the cellular level and we're going to work our way up to the systems level. It's really kind of cool that we start really tiny and then work to the bigger level, which I kind of like that. The second module probably has the biggest chunk of information, and that is vertical systems, the somatosensory and the motor systems. We're also going to talk about pain and pain management and pain as a disease. So that's probably the biggest change between the 5th edition and the 6th edition, is there was more information added to the pain chapter, which is really great. And now they're talking about pain as the disease and the symptom. So we've thought about pain as a symptom up until now, but chronic pain is actually a disease and a symptom. So really interesting area of inquiry. So the third module is we're going to be talking about the peripheral nervous system, the spinal region, and the cranial nerves and brainstem, and just a little bit on the visual and vestibular systems. So when you see a module that has a ton of chapters in it, you should interpret that as we're not going to do a lot in each chapter, we're just going to touch on it. So with cranial nerves, we're going really basic. There's a lot of great cranial nerve information, but we are going to go with just basic function of cranial nerves. In the last module, we're going to really be talking about the brain, the CSF system and blood supply, and then stroke is the major disorder of blood supply in the brain. The cerebrum itself and its functions, which is really interesting, and the cerebral association areas, which is memory, behavior, and communication. So towards the end of the quarter, particularly, I know everybody's stressed out. I try to make the assignments a little more fun. So we have that to look forward to while we're learning this very interesting information. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to develop this cohesive body of knowledge for the PTA program. So as we go through, I'm going to try to link the information we're learning to things that you've learned in previous classes to hopefully ground it a little bit for you clinically and make it make a little more sense, because neuro being very conceptual, we need to ground it to help it make sense. Just like in previous quarters, I'm going to send out weekly announcements about what's due this week. No labs. Yay. No labs in this class. You have your other classes, your lab class. There are 4 tests, basically several chapters in each test, and the discussion questions are designed for you to delve into the information a little bit further. So the homework type things that I have scheduled each week, it might be, there's usually one thing each week. It might be a discussion board, it might be a little write-up or short essay about a particular subject, or just something that I want you to think about. I don't really want you to look up answers in the book. I want you to look up answers in your brain. Okay. So sometimes I just want you to think about how it might affect an individual, or how it might affect you if someone in your family had that neurological disorder. In week 2, there's an assignment where I ask you to describe events at the synapse using other terms besides the terminology that we normally use. It's kind of a fun assignment, and it's always fun for me to grade. And I'm completely open to whatever format you want to use. Some people in past classes have done videos, some have done all sorts of things. One person used office supplies at her desk at work and made the video on her phone while she was at work. And so she had things that represented the different parts, which was kind of neat. One person used dog treats and their dog to do it. Um, Last year's class really blew me away with their with this particular assignment they did. There was some great artwork, there was interpretive dance, there was all sorts of things. I have a couple of examples of student videos from the past linked in the module that you can take a look at. You don't have to do a video. Some people like to do that. Some people like to write a little story or make up an analogy. It lends itself easily to transportation analogies or sports analogies or that sort of thing. So be creative and do something that's fun and interesting to you, because if you can come up with a way of thinking of it besides just the way we describe it, it can help you understand the process a little bit better. So hopefully that's a fun assignment for you. So there's a lot of information in the book, like, for example, in the neurotransmitters chapter, there's lots of information about the chemical structure of the neurotransmitters. We are not going to go over that at all. So don't let the amount of information in the book overwhelm you, or don't feel like you have to know that. And if at any point you feel overwhelmed with the information, let me know and we can dissect it down and get to what we really need to know. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, and I also don't want you to think you need to know everything in the book, because you don't. Just the basic foundation of information. We're going to talk about how things work, how it affects neurological rehab, and then we're going to move on to the next subject. It's a subject that's constantly evolving and new things are being figured out every day, but we're not going to learn them all in the next 12 weeks. We're just getting a foundation. There are also a lot of mysteries, which I don't know, I love that about neuro. That's so appealing to me. There are a lot of things that we don't know. We can describe them, we can look at how things work, but we really don't know why they work the way they work. And it's a mystery, which is exciting. So we're going to learn the basics. We're going to get a nice foundation to go out later and take some more classes or do some more things with neuro. I'm always doing continuing ed and learning new things, so there's always more to learn, and that's another thing I like about neuro. In terms of clinical application, working with neurological patients or patients with neurological diagnosis is really interesting because it's not cookie cutter. It's not like, oh, this is the protocol. No, you have to figure things out for each person. And I love that. That's my favorite part of working with neuro. A lot of students have said to me that they really want to work in pediatrics. Well, if you work in pediatrics, peds is neuro. If you want to work in neuro rehab like I do, of course, that's neuro. If you want to work in inpatient rehab, that's neuro. If you want to work in orthopedics, well, I've never had a patient come into the clinic without their nervous system. And a lot of the muscular and movement retraining that we do with someone after surgery is neuro rehab. So you are going to use these principles throughout your practice in PT. The other thing is a lot of the questions that patients will ask you in the clinic, if you don't find the answer in the kinesiology book, you're going to find it in the neuro book. So this is an answer class where you figure out how things work, and that's one of the reasons why I love it and find it exciting. I hope that all of you enjoy this class even a teeny bit as much as I do. I'm endlessly fascinated by this information, and it's applicable to every day I'm in the clinic, and I love it. This is going to be a great quarter. I'm really looking forward to it. The first office hours will be on January 10th, which is a week after the class starts on January 3rd, because they're on Wednesday night and the course starts on Wednesday. So we probably won't have a ton of questions on the first day. I don't know, maybe you will. But as you know, office hours are not the only opportunity to ask questions, but they are a good opportunity to get together and discuss these things and go over the learning objectives. If there's any other information you need from me, you know where to find me. I live in the computer, right? This will be a great quarter. I'm looking forward to it. I hope to see at least some of you in Canvas and hopefully in office hours. And I will probably see a lot of people on test days because I'll be doing the check-ins on the test days. So have a great January, and I will see you in the computer.